maybe elaborate a little bit on Cromer and just how you guys came to be? And he was out of the league, I think, last year. But how did it all come about?
I think the general part that's probably true for any hire is who's out there, who's available, who's good, right? And when you're in the league long enough, I'm not as young as I used to be. You have a chance to track people and also play or coach against other coaches in this case, and so people develop, reputations of doing things well and their players playing at a high level, and so that's kind of how some of it came to be.
It's a signal that he's known as a really good run blocking offensive line. Is that part of what we're looking at here? Is that you would like to commit a little bit more maybe to the ground?
No, there's no hidden signal. What I want to do is play well up front, and I want to protect our quarterback. And we had an opportunity to land Coach Cromer, and we were able to strike and do that, and that's a big piece to developing that position, right? Is having the right guy in the room to do that.
Obviously, he's coming from a huge, heavy outside zone Sean McDermott offense. Also ran Michigan in Buffalo, a lot of gap scheme.
Yeah.
You guys did a good job on the crack toss and then roll. Do you envision a harder shift toward outside zone, or to try to exploit whatever is necessary?
Yeah, I like Mark. I like his background in both, really, and that was also a draw to me, because I like to be able to do what our players do best, and then philosophically make sure we're doing what's best for our quarterback, and then also what's evolving in the game. And so only seeing it through the inability to see it through a two-dimensional lens was not what I was looking for.
When you see what the Rams did, they were so close, right on the cusp there, decided to trade away some high draft picks to get some veteran guys they knew could step in and win them a Super Bowl. Do you feel like that's a one-off, or is that maybe a trend that we could see around the NFL?
Just in terms of how they built it,
they added Stafford.
It's an interesting approach, and one that we've talked about not doing, but that you think about, because it you continue to do it that way, and eventually that ends at some point, and so they've obviously had success doing it. So it's something that I think that I know I've thought about, and because everyone talks about draft, develop, build it through the draft. They've obviously gone the other way, and they won, right? So probably two different ways to go about it. Being around that a little bit, I think at some point, there's things that come into play when you go about it that way as well down the road.
Is it tempting? Is it tempting though when you have a team that's really close to go, hey, let's go all in on it?
Yeah, I've experienced that a little bit too, and yeah, I mean, you feel like you're missing this piece. You want to add that piece. I mean, that's kind of what happens around the trade deadline. That you want to happen. Hey, we feel like we're missing this piece. Is that piece available out there? Let's try and acquire it. Right. Every coach out there would want that. Most every coach, because that's the nature of the industry we're in. So yeah.
Is it dangerous not to overreact to what just worked?
With respect, just
like
overall.
What the Rams did to trade it all away.
I think you gotta take a step back and take a deep breath and just say, okay, what part do we know, and then what parts don't we know? That just because they're in their own building, and every team's different, and where every team is a little bit different as well in their stages. So we're different in Buffalo than they are, but there's a lot of good teams in the NFL, and they're all having their own little way of doing it just a little bit differently, and so you got to respect that, but also try and learn from it a little bit. And hey, if there's something there that you feel like you can incorporate, then you do it.
Sean, around the time that Brian left, there was with some references made to a potential rift between you two. What, if anything, can you tell us about that? Was that the case?
Yeah, look, when you go through a season, there's 17 games plus preseason. We've won a lot of games, and through that, there's conversations that take place that they get hard, right? Not every conversation on good teams and thriving teams like we've been are going to be easy, and so. But no, I'm had no issue with Brian, and super happy for him and his family, and the opportunity that they have in front of them.
Sean, you said all these new coaching hires, it's a chance to rebrand. How do you want to rebrand this season and down the road?
Well, I just think overall you're able to take a step back. We now and going into year 6, and we've done a lot of good things, but also with the change, some of the we had a lot of continuity last year, and that's good too. But that also it brings challenges as well. So now we're able to infuse some new ideas, some young coaches into our system as well, and to develop them, and that's what you have to continually do. Just being with Andy over the years, and when you win, they want a piece of what you do and how you do it, so they start grabbing. And you're seeing on the personnel side, you're seeing on the coaching side, some of our just even non-coaching staff as well. So I think that's an exciting piece of the challenge of rebuilding for next season.
Sean, it's been 2 years since you've had training camp at St. John Fisher. There's rumors that you guys are moving in that direction. What are the pros of getting away from camp that you did originally when you first got here before COVID? And can you say anything about training camp possibly Rochester?
The pros of, give it to me again, the pros.
Of going away for training camp and getting away from the team facility.
Yeah, so that's certainly been talked about of going back to camp at St. John Fisher, and we'll see where that goes. There's pros and cons to both, really, and I think we've documented those over the years, and so we'll just see where it goes.
Sean, with Heath, take his body of work, the relationship he had, the job that he did over the last 3 years, and when he moves on to a new spot, a lot of fans react like, oh, was this about the kickoff or this or that? What can you tell us about that? And a lot of people don't know Matt Smiley's been here longer than he has, which is kind of an interesting dynamic as well.
Yeah, so super happy for Heath as well. Opportunity in Jacksonville for him and his family, and but also super happy at the same time for Matt Smiley. To your point, he's been here a long time, and since 2017, and he's been a guy that's been an assistant through his whole career, but he's so respected around the league. When we promoted Matt, the outpouring of support for him and the other special teams coaches that were out there were just happy to see him finally get his shot, because they know how he's worked and how supportive he was, and being the team player with Heath. And we brought Heath in, who had less experience, and put him over the top of Matt. So that's not easy, but it speaks to who Matt is as a person, who he is as a team player, and he learned through that, right? And so you watch that, you observe that, and now he's earned his chance to go on and run his own show now. So I think he's going to do a nice job for us.
Sean, how much did the addition of Aaron Cromer hinge on Bobby?
I'm not going to get into Tim one guy versus the other. I'm happy for Bobby. So I'm happy for us to get a chance to add a coach like Aaron Cromer.
You have had a chance to debrief and reflect on it for a while now, a couple of months. What happened in the last 30 seconds in regulation against Kansas City?
Yeah, to me, again, like I said before, it comes down to execution, which starts and ends with the head coach, and so that's really what I said after the game. That's where I am now. I take full responsibility for the execution that wasn't where it needed to be.
You seem to be making a unified front as a team to kind of be a bit vague in that regard. There's still a lot of people that fans media that would get some detail and specifics as to what could have been different, how you're defining execution. I think execution has been ambiguous to you. Why are you making a concerted effort to lead the thing?
I feel like I've addressed it to the point that it needs to be addressed. Listen, there's nothing more that I want for our fans than to feel great and win that Super Bowl, and that's what I'm getting our team focused on and getting ready to come back, and that's why we're here at the Combine, to get ourselves better to make another run at it next season.
You at the podium, you mentioned kind of fitting the pieces of the coaching puzzle together. How much of bringing Joe Brady in as a guy who's called plays, and obviously Ken doesn't have a lot of that under his belt, none at all actually. How much of bringing Joe in was a little bit that he has that pedigree?
Yeah, that's I think that's an important quality, right, in the staff that we put together around Ken. I've been in that position before, and there's no substitute for experience, and like in many of the jobs that we are in. So Ken is prepared, he's well equipped, he's seen it through the players' eyes, as I say, seen it through the eyes of the helmet. He's now seen it for a number of years through the coaching lens, and so I think he's going to do a great job. In addition to that, his familiarity with Josh's familiarity with Ken, but there is the element of, hey, what happens inside in the office, and hey, I got a guy next to me that has experience, that's called plays. So I think that's a big component as well.
Sean, Brian
got to be comfortable inside his own skin, right? Ken Dorsey, in order to have a guy come in who was an OC last year.
Yeah, I mean that's a piece of it. Ken was involved in the hiring of his staff as well, and not just myself, but so his involvement gives him ownership in who we hired as well, and I think they're off to a great start so far.
Sean, Brian got a lot of playing the way Josh has been for the last couple of years. Can you specifically detail the things that Ken had to do with Josh?
Yeah, I mean when you look at just to jump away from Josh for a second, but when you look at Ken's influence on Cam Newton, and you look at then what Ken has been able to do alongside of Josh and alongside of Brian and helping Josh, and then Josh is putting his stamp on Ken when we talked about it. I think that alone says a lot, or says enough. Ken is a good young coach that works at it and is smart, and I think those, again, as I mentioned earlier on the podium to Maddie, those are two good qualities that give you a chance to be successful in this league.
Since we don't see a lot of practice, obviously, we know that he does a lot of work with Jordan Thompson on the campus. In season, what is Dorsey's greatest role with Josh in season? Is it mechanics or any of that stuff? Or?
As a quarterback coach
As a
now?
quarterback coach, and then obviously it'll change now, but in these last 3 years, what has been the in-season stuff that's been instrumental to him?
Yeah, so if you kind of look at it like this, and every team's a little bit different, but the way we have done it primarily is the OC will be involved with Josh, big picture-wise, but the interaction, the day-to-day interaction in the room itself is primarily the quarterback coach and then the other quarterbacks in the room. So the coordinator checks in and has his influence and role and connection with the quarterback, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the legwork is with the position coach itself, and that's true of most positions.
What did you see from Dane Jackson as he was elevated and thrust into that role, significant playing time after Tre'Davious?
Yeah. Those are some big shoes to fill, and Dane is a special young man. I thought he really did a good job in a lot of the areas, and came in mid-season or just after mid-season and played tough, played smart, added to his level of experience, made some really good plays, and then there's some plays that I know that he wants to work on for next season, and I'm looking forward to watching him compete coming back this year.
Sean, after you've had some time to reflect, the trio of young defensemen, Rousseau, Vanessa, and Boogie, what did you see from them? How much can they grow moving forward?
That's the one piece when you look back and you say we added pieces in the draft the last year in particular with Greg and Boogie, and the year before with AJ. Those guys are still young players, and there was a lot asked of them this past season, and I don't care whether you're a defensive lineman or what, when you're a young player there's a lot of firsts, and so those players are only going to continue to grow and get better. They have to have really good off seasons. This is a critical off season for them because now you're talking AJ's now going into year 3, which is a pivotal year. Greg and Boogie using the experience that they gained this year going into year 2. So that'll be big for us as we move forward, is how they play and how they develop.
Is it difficult not to, try and jump the gun and stay patient when you're talking about development? Because you have seen some fruits of development even last year with some of your guys at other positions. So how difficult is it to balance that?
It's I can tell you that's one of the hardest things as a talent evaluator to do, is you go through, because it used to be the kind of the golden rule was wait 2 years, wait through the second training camp, decide on who makes the roster. But now with not now, that didn't just happen, but the way the rules are set up, you don't get around the guys as much in the off season where they're getting those valuable reps and adding to their repertoire. And so now the rule, at least in some ways, is maybe you wait 3 years through the third training camp before the light comes on, so that you're not premature in making a bad decision. Then that player goes and hits a home run somewhere else because we didn't wait long enough. But there's a balance, right? So the player has to do their part, and then we have to do our part in developing them as well.
What specifically do you want AJ to work on? He's just at that third training camp. What does he need to develop specifically?
Well, I don't want to go into detail really, because it gives away some of his playbook, right? But I just say overall, just you go back to starting with your body and making sure you're in the best shape you can possibly. Not specific to AJ, but this time of year is a time for players to really start back building it again for next season. They took a little hiatus for a couple weeks, a month, to get away from the game and away from just letting their body, trying to let their body heal and rest. And now it's starting to become that next chapter in the off season where they start to build themselves and reinvent themselves for next season.
Sean,
Take 2 more for this session, please.
When you were talking earlier about Devin and how when he got going at the end of the year kind of shaped the identity of the offense, how do you move that forward into next season and build on that?
Yeah, I think that should be of great confidence to Devin, the way he played, right? And when you see the impact, and he feels the impact more than anything rather than just seeing it, but he felt that, the way he played and performed for us. I think that should bode well in terms of momentum into the off season, and then coming into camp this year.
Sean, you're going to have to do some salary cap gymnastics again this year. How much do you involve yourself in that? Obviously, if a player is maybe going to be released, I'm sure that comes across your desk, but contract restructures or pay cuts, do you get involved in every one of those decisions, or is that all on Brandon, or just philosophically, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, we work at most everything together. It's just at what level, Jay, and in this case, Brandon takes the lead on those things, like I take the lead on the field and coaching. So, I would say with respect to most of those areas, Brandon is the lead, but we talk about most everything in that category of items that you mentioned. So, with the negotiating with the agents and everything, I really don't do that, but I always try and at least have a feel for where things are, and just try and hopefully sometimes bridge a gap if I can help bridge a gap.
What's your general sense of where you stand in relation to the cap heading into free agency?
What's my understanding of where we stand?
Your general sense of, obviously every team wants as much space as possible. You guys are in that situation, but do you feel pretty comfortable that you'll be able to do what you want to do, whether it's retain your own or go outside, given your situation?
Yeah, we're not, obviously we'd like to be at the number one spot. Everyone would. That's hard to do with where we are in our build at this point, but we know we have good players. We know we've built a good culture, and I think that although we're maybe challenged a little bit with the cap, I think Buffalo's should be an endearing place to free agents that are out there. And first and foremost, as I said before, the priority needs to be trying to re-sign our own guys. That's where it starts.